These NFL teams will be way better in 2025. Welcome, football fans. In this video, I break down the most improved NFL teams this offseason and the teams that I feel will be way better in 2025 than they were in 2024. So if that sounds good, you know what to do. Don't be a jabroni. Subscribe to the BLV and Gronk spike the like button. Let's get started with the first team that I believe is improved and will be way better than 2024. What better way of kicking off this video than with my favorite team? That's right. The New England Patriots will be way better in 2025. And you know why I know this to be the case? Because for the first time in what feels like a while, I do not have the comments coming from outside fan bases, coming from haters about the Patriots, suggesting that I'm wrong, that I'm delusional, that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the Patriots this season. Almost everybody across NFL fandom that covers the NFL have widely recognized that the Patriots have crushed the NFL offseason and are about to be the breakout team of 2025. Everybody. I have not heard a single whisper out of a hater one time. And you know how crazy that is for me? Okay, that's crazy. The New England Patriots will be improved. It all begins with the coaching staff. You go from Jerod Mayo, who I thought was arguably the worst coach in football last year. In his first year on the job, the man had no idea what he was doing whatsoever. You upgrade Jerod Mayo to another former great linebacker of the New England Patriots, Mike Vrabel, who once took the Tennessee Titans with Ryan Tannehill to an AFC championship game. He took the Tennessee Titans to the number 1 seed, one of the most injured teams in NFL history, I might add. Mike Vrabel is consistently a coach that gets more out of less. That is a huge upgrade to the culture, to the mentality, to the belief of the Patriots. Josh McDaniels is, in my opinion, one of the greatest offensive coordinators in NFL history. Just look at his resume. He is the new coordinator for Drake May. That's an upgrade over Alex Van Pelt. Josh McDaniels has also had a year to reflect on his Raiders tenure, his offense, tweak his verbiage, tweak his schemes, go across to different college programs and NFL programs and capture some new ideas and involve those to evolve Drake May in 2025. I love the staff that these two have assembled. I love Doug Marrone, a former head coach, being the offensive coordinator. I love the outside approach to a defensive staff. I feel like the New England Patriots will be much better coached than last year, which is going to upgrade some of the players that were underwhelming last season, like a returning Christian Barmore from his health, okay? Kyle Duggar, who had the worst season of his career last year, right? Players like this who were on the team last year, maybe even Ramondre Stevenson, who had an up and down season last year. Guys that you know are talented, have played at a high level before, but for whatever reason, last year, it wasn't quite the same product as we're used to. But then you talk about all the additions the Patriots have made. You talk about the leadership turnover that Mike Vrabel has installed with the Patriots. This team is going to have an entirely new identity. There's no more looking at the past. There's no more talking about Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and what Willie McGinnis did or what Teddy Bruschi said or what Rodney Harrison did in practice. Like, this team is going to be about the future. And I believe that was needed in New England to turn the page, to create a fresh chapter in the Patriots as a franchise. Because that's all great. We love the memories. But this team needs to look ahead and establish something new. And I think Mike Vrabel is doing that. You look at the players that he's brought in. Milton Williams was the high-ticket item on the free agency addition list, and he was arguably the biggest free agent signed this offseason, like the highest contract, highest paid Patriot in NFL history. Milton Williams is an absolute destroyer of pockets, and he will provide a much-needed pass rush for the Patriots from the inside. You combine him with Christian Barmore, if healthy, and we're talking about a destructive duo on the interior, right? Not only that, but you have Harold Landry, who has been a leader for Vrabel's Titans, who can set the edge better than anyone in football. He's one of the best edge-setting run defenders in football, and he has multiple seasons of 10-plus sack production. He knows what it takes to execute in this system and scheme. Robert Spillane has been one of the most underrated linebackers in football. He takes the leadership and communication from Jawan Bentley, and I think he is a much-needed replacement. I think that he is a guy that can play linebacker at a high level, can do everything, stop the run, cover, right? He is a good football player. Very, very underrated. Carlton Davis is going to be the best CB2 in New England in a while. I mean, this guy can really, really play at a high level. He's been a CB1 his entire career, whether it be in Tampa Bay winning Super Bowls or in Detroit as the number one seed in the NFC. Like, this guy has held it down in the secondary. He's incredibly feisty, aggressive, great in press, great in man. Davis and Gonzalez are going to be an awesome duo in the secondary. I don't think people realize how good those two are going to be complementing each other, between Gonzalez's mirror match smoothness and Carlton Davis' aggression and physicality. You're going to be able to match up with every single 1 and 2 in football and play man coverage. Marcus Jones, quick, twitchy, can hold that nickel down spot. You got other players like Marcus Epps coming in as a former safety leader and captain for Josh McDaniels in the, for the Raiders. He's been to a Super Bowl with the Eagles. He's going to complement Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers. They draft Craig Woodson in the secondary. They draft Josh Farmer in the front seven. They add Jack Gibbons, one of the most underrated linebackers in football the last 2 years. Caleb on Chason to add a little pass rush on third downs. This defense is absolutely loaded. I mean, Tonga to help them stop the run at nose tackle. Then you talk about Swinson from the draft, who is everybody's kind of favorite sub-package rusher later in the draft. So that adds a little bit of pass rushing flair as well. I mean, this defense is absolutely ridiculous on paper. Like, this could be a top 5 defense once again. They were a top 3 to 5 defense 2 years ago. And really all that happened was Bill Belichick left. They brought in the disaster Gerard Mayo, and they completely unraveled as a defense. Now you add all this talent to what was already established in New England, and you're talking about potentially an elite unit against the run and the pass. They can play man coverage, zone coverage, stop the run, and potentially get the quarterback in a variety of ways, whether it be by a 4-man rush or by blitzing. They'll be creative. So I'm really excited for the Patriots defensively. Offensively, Drake May has some weapons to play with. I mean, Stephon Diggs now, with his quickness, his separation skills, his ability to line up in the slot or out wide. He's a veteran. He's a leader. He's a dog. He brings a mentality, a toughness. I feel like just a little bit of a dick attitude just to get going, like get people going, right? Get under their skin a little bit. Be an instigator for everybody. Get that energy of the offense installed, right? And fire it up. Mac Hollins, I love his potential leadership skills, but then also his special teams value, his wide receiver value, his size, his speed, his playmaking ability in big moments for Buffalo last year, right? He's a guy you could throw up a jump ball and he can make a play. You add Kyle Williams, one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft, who can play out wide and separate with speed and quickness at the top of his routes. He's great after the catch. Demario Douglas could really now be a complement as a slot receiver inside of Josh McDaniels' offense, where this guy could catch 90 passes, and I wouldn't be surprised in this offense. He's so quick and twitchy. So I look at that combination. You have Kendrick Bourne, you have Kayshon Boutte. I mean, all these guys can potentially complement now Stephon Diggs and Kyle Williams, who were added to this wide receiving core. You still retain Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper to complement at tight end. Your offensive line is so much better at left and right tackle. A first-round top 5 pick in Will Campbell, who brings an attitude, who brings I feel, just a Mike Vrabel guy to the offensive line. And hopefully the long-term blindside protector for Drake May, Will Campbell, Morgan Moses. You've got a rookie and a vet on the left and the right, and 2 guys that I think are going to drastically improve Drake May's time and feel within the pocket. Garrett Bradbury does help at center in terms of replacing Dave Andrews. I would say that might be the area where they declined or got a little bit worse. But Andrews is old, and Andrews has been getting injured a lot. They also drafted Jared Wilson, who I'm very excited for as arguably the most talented young center in that draft class. They added some depth as well. So I look at the Patriots and Travion Henderson. I mean, how could I forget? Travion Henderson is there as well. He's an excellent pass blocker, one of the best I've ever seen coming out of college. He can catch the football. He can run routes out wide. He can be an explosive option in the screen game or the running game. There was so many pieces, so many players added. I mean, I didn't even get to everybody. I mean, that's an insane amount of players right there. That's an insane amount of coaches. This team is going to flip on its head. This team is going to look like a different product from the Patriots in 2025. This team could be the breakout team of 2025 because of the improved coaching, the improved personnel on offense and defense around a young quarterback that has all the skill in the world to really take over the NFL in year 2. Watch out for Drake May and the Patriots. It might be their time to push for the playoffs this season. As a Patriots fan, I can't even believe this is how well the offseason went on paper. Now it's time to see it on the field. Now, team number 2 that I think improved and I think will be drastically better than 2024 is the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are kind of like the NFC version of the New England Patriots. It begins with the coaching staff, Ben Johnson as the offensive mind and the head coach, and Dennis Allen as the defensive mind and the defensive coordinator. That is an upgrade on both sides of the ball, in my opinion. Even though Matt Eberflus was a defensive head coach, I would actually probably rather have Dennis Allen as a straight-up defensive coordinator. But that's just my opinion, okay? So people might disagree with that. Maybe the personnel of Chicago's defense might fit Eberflus because it was kind of made for him. Who knows with that? But I will say Chicago did everything in their power to give Ben Johnson all the tools to create a perfect offense for Caleb Williams and to really get a huge jump out of the play of the first overall pick that at one time was being called generational. Is he still generational? We'll find out this season. But Chicago, they did everything to provide basically no excuses for Caleb Williams' play because it's really that good on offense. You look at the offensive line, Joe Thuney, a Hall of Fame guard, a multi-time Super Bowl champion with 2 different teams, one of the best guards in football still, can play tackle even if you need him to. Joe Thuney is just incredible, and he's also a great presence for a team that's young and needs a leader in there. Like, he's that type of guy. You've got Drew Dahlman, who's one of the best centers in his prime in football, does experience some injury issues, but man, the man can move in the run game, and that's going to really help Ben Johnson. Jonah Jackson, who's been a very good Pro Bowl caliber guard under Ben Johnson's coaching in Detroit. He's added to the guard position. It's a completely new 3, a completely new trio in the interior for Chicago. You add Ozzie to the left tackle position, the second-round pick out of Boston College, a massive human being, just in case Braxton Jones does not work out this year, but he's probably more of a developmental prospect. You also have, Ryan Bates as a backup who's solid enough. You've got Darnell Wright entering year 3 instead of year 2. That could even see a bigger jump than what we saw last year. Colston Loveland upgrades the athleticism and the pass catching at the tight end position, complemented still by Cole Kmet, who remains. The running back position may be the only position that they really truly didn't improve, but you still have DeAndre Swift to catch the football, Roschon Johnson as a power option. They did draft a running back in the 7th round out of Rutgers who brings a power element. And then wide receiver, Luther Burden is not quite Keenan Allen in terms of his savvy and route running capabilities, but he's an explosive playmaker with the ball in his hands who could be kind of like the Jamison Williams of Ben Johnson's Chicago offense. DJ Moore is one of the best receivers in football. Rome Odunze enters year 2, which should see improvement, especially after how he dominated the back half of the schedule last year. Zacchaeus helps with depth as well, right? So just looking at how they were able to complement some of their already added playmakers to this roster, such as DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, with guys like Burden, guys like Colston Loveland, and then the offensive line improvement is going to drastically improve Caleb Williams' timing, Caleb Williams' confidence and composure within the pocket, and really truly allow Caleb Williams to play the style of football that he wants to play, which is patient, which is ad-libbed, which is backyard, schoolyard football, right? So that's what I really like about that offensive line improvement. And then you add the Ben Johnson genius of getting all these playmakers involved in different ways, in different forms, and scheming up the running game and complementing Caleb with play action, screen game, run game to take the pressure off of him as a player, as a young quarterback. So he's in the absolute best situation possible for a young quarterback. He has all the weapons in the world. The offensive line looks like a top 10 unit on paper, and he's got one of the best coordinators in football going in Ben Johnson. So this offense is going to be much more explosive and fun to watch in Chicago, which is something you don't often say. Defensively, they were already solid last year in the previous season, but I do feel like they did improve on paper when you add Grady Jarrett, a veteran that's not quite in his prime any longer, but still solid to start in the NFL. Shamar Turner also complements him as a defensive tackle that can add some pass rushing ability to the interior and sub out like a Dexter and complement an Andrew Billings. You add Odenigbo from the Indianapolis Colts. I don't exactly love their depth at the edge position, like Austin Booker, for example, but Montez Sweat needed a partner in crime, and I feel like Deo can do that from the Colts, right? He had a solid season last year, very good edge setter, very big human, fits the Dennis Allen length, size profile for what they're looking for from that position. Otherwise, they didn't add a ton to the defensive side of the football. They didn't really need to. Most of their improvement this year will be had by the coaching, where Matt Eberflus was constantly kind of just overwhelmed, and it felt like he didn't bring any sort of creative or schematic week-to-week flair or edge to his football team. And offensively, they were just always underwhelming from a play calling, foundational offense standpoint. And it feels like Chicago finally now has the coaching that can give them an edge on a weekly basis from a play calling standpoint, that can scheme up with the best coaching staffs in football and both sides of the football with Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson. And they have the talent on offense to truly take a huge, huge step, scoring points, beating teams down, and bearing down in 2025. So they had the defense already. Now it's time for Caleb and the offense to step up and be big time in 2025. I think they are definitely going to do it. The New York Giants, I think, will be much improved in 2025. This is a team that you started off with, okay, no coaching improvements, but coaching has not really been the problem, in my opinion, from the Giants' perspective. I think that talent in specific areas such as quarterback, offensive line, and the secondary have really derailed the Giants the last couple of seasons after making the playoffs as a surprise team in 2022, which I think was a direct result of Brian Daboll's savvy and his incredible season that he offered the Giants. I never thought a Daniel Jones-led team would make the playoffs, but hey, they did once upon a time. Now, this is a much different roster at this point, right? Offensively speaking, you've got a superstar in Malik Neighbors to get the football, and you have, a really nice running back in Tyrone Tracy. But the quarterback, still kind of a problem, still a question entering 2025, but certainly more mature. Certainly we understand the product that they're going to bring a little bit more, and it certainly cannot be worse. When you're talking about the mob man, Tommy DeVito, who the Italian stallion himself, I mean, he does not deserve to be on a football field starting at NFL quarterback at any point into the future. Then you talk about, okay, Drew Lock, who's like a fun backup, but he's nothing more. And you're talking about Daniel Jones, who really had one good NFL season, and that's about it. And it was majority to do with the scheme and the coaching around him. Now you add Russell Wilson, a Super Bowl champion, a multi-time Super Bowl appearance quarterback, a future Hall of Fame type of player, a guy that even at his worst, even at his older age, can still chuck the moon ball with the best of them, can still operate an offense well in the 2-minute situation, and still understands how to protect the football, which is going to complement an awesome defense on the other side. So Russell Wilson is their first starting option, and he gives them, I think, a high floor for what we should expect within this offense. Plus, you've got talents to complement him, like Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson. These guys can all go, all athletic. A couple of them are great deep threats, and then underneath, you've got quick Wan'Dale Robinson. Tyrone Tracy's a great receiving back, being a former receiver. He's an explosive option. They add Cam Scatterbo to Devin Singletary as well. Jameis Winston can be the backup if Russell Wilson does not work out. Jameis brings great aura, great vibes, great teammate, and also the guy can sling the rock. If Russell Wilson is not working out for the Giants, Jameis can easily step in and just throw 300 yards a game, and maybe he'll throw a couple turnovers, but they can play the variance game within their offense. With this type of receiving core, I mean, I would love Jameis. I would love to see what he's able to do within this offense. Andrew Thomas is one of the best left tackles in football. They really didn't kind of improve their offense. They get Thomas back healthy. They did add James Hudson to the depth and Forsythe to the depth of the tackle position. They also added a kid in the 5th round who should have went a lot higher in the draft, probably like 3rd round for some people. But honestly, they didn't really do a lot to really improve the offensive line. I just think it's going to come down to maybe quicker, more decisive quarterback play, just overall more explosives. Right? They might live and die on explosives with Russell Wilson, so we'll have to see, but it's nice that you have a complementary defense where they can shut teams down and create havoc and create turnovers. Because you look at the Giants defense now, and this could be a top 10 unit in football this year. Of course, you have Dexter Lawrence, you had Brian Burns, right? You have Okereke, you've got some ballers on that side of the ball already. But then, okay, let's add some pieces to it. You draft Darius Alexander at defensive tackle to probably start right away alongside Dexter Lawrence and Roy Robertson Harris and Nunez Roches and a bunch of other Tampa Bay Buccaneer former players like Ledbetter. But I feel like that defensive front is big, it's nasty, it's physical. It's going to be really difficult to run the ball on that unit. I mean, look at the size of these guys. I mean, that's incredible. And then you add Chauncey Golston at the edge position to complement Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter. I mean, that is the best edge position in football, I think. I mean, Abdul Carter is unbelievable as a talent, 3rd overall pick, incredible bend, quickness, pursuit to the football, closing speed. He's basically Micah Parsons 2.0. Brian Burns is a great pass rusher. I mean, Chauncey Golston, a very good edge 3. He's the edge 4 on this team. You look at the corner position, they upgraded with Paulson Adebo. There's still questions about Deonte Banks, but I love Drew Phillips. I think the corner position is much improved because at least they now have a CB1 in Paulson Adebo who can play man on the outside. Javon Holland's really going to improve their secondary just from a overall range perspective and the plays that he can cover up with his speed and his ability to track the football and all that stuff and his physicality. So I look at this defense and I say, I mean, they've got a stud at really every level. They've got multiple studs at the edge position. They've got the best nose tackle in football. They've got a very good linebacker in Bobby. They've got a very solid CB1 in Adebo. They've got a superstar safety in Javon Holland. They've got a good nickel corner in Drew Phillips. I mean, this defense really on paper is sweet. And I think they're going to go from 3 wins, probably up to a pretty compelling, pretty interesting, competitive football team. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this team was like in the hunt because they are very talented. They really just don't have a quarterback, and their offensive line is kind of shaky. If Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston can do something with this roster, we're talking about a potentially underrated, surprising football team in 2025. And I can't forget Jackson Dart if he does see the field at some point this season. The kid does have talent. He's a pretty good athlete, pretty good size, has the aura and the energy, and he has a great deep ball, and he's really quick with his overall intermediate game and RPO game. So I think he could also factor into this position as well. So the New York Giants, man, love what they did this offseason. They completely flipped the script for Brian Daboll and gave this regime a new chance and a new life. So I think the Giants will be very much improved in 2025. The Arizona Cardinals, I think, are the next improved football team that will be way better in 2025. Offensively, they really didn't do a lot to kind of change anything about their team. They maybe added a bit of offensive line depth. They still have Kelvin Beachum backing up Paris Johnson and Jonah Williams at tackle. Christian Jones enters year 2. Royce Newman and Curran, I believe, who's a former Chicago Bear and Seattle Seahawk, I think. Both those guys have starting experience in the NFL. Nick Leverett also has starting experience in the NFL. So they have some good depth on the offensive line to back up their interior, which is probably the most suspect area of their offense. They really didn't have to do a lot on offense because they already had James Conner and Trey Benson and DeMarcado at running back, as well as DJ Dallas, who I also like, and Michael Carter. I mean, that's a very deep running back room. Wide receiver-wise, they brought back Zay Jones to complement Marvin Harrison entering year 2 and Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch. And really, maybe they could have used an upgrade in terms of vertical ability at wide receiver, but that's maybe the one missing piece that they have not added this offseason. But you're expecting a healthier, better Kyler Murray in 2025 to elevate this unit, continuing the rapport of the offensive line within this awesome offensive scheme. I'm a big fan of their coordinator, and I feel like they bring a lot of creativity and flair to the running game. And they're just a different offense to prepare for because of all the angles they attack you at within the run game. Their play action under center offense, Kyler Murray's dimension of his quickness, his speed, and his elusiveness. And then obviously you've got to prepare for Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, who's one of the best tight ends in football. James Conner's one of the most well-rounded running backs. This offense can move the ball, score points, possess the ball. That wasn't really a problem last year. It really came down to their defense, right? They had 8 wins last year, which I actually think, they probably were not an 8-win team. If you're actually looking at their roster from last season, they probably weren't that capable or good. They did kind of benefit from the Niners kind of falling off and getting injured and things like that, but I feel like the Cardinals easily could be a team that goes from 8 wins to like 10 or 11, and I wouldn't be that surprised. It just kind of comes down to this division and how competitive and close it is. I at least feel like this team, like I said, last year they won 8 games, but it didn't feel like they were that good, especially how they kind of fell apart down the stretch. This year, I could see them actually feeling like a team that's a competitive playoff caliber team. Even if they don't make the playoffs, I feel like they're going to be in that mix because defensively, they've completely changed their defense. Like the front 7 is going to be so much better in all areas. Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson are going to provide one of the best interior run-stuffing duos in football. Campbell was literally graded as the best run defender in football last season at his old age. And then to complement Dalvin Tomlinson, the big nose tackle, Calais Campbell, you bring in the 3-tech Walter Nolan, who can just absolutely get after stuff. He can maybe even play 5-tech as well in this defense, but Walter Nolan, he's quick, he's a penetrator, he's a first-round pick, he's got incredible talent, especially in pass-rushing situations. That can take some pressure off Dalvin Tomlinson. Darius Robinson, and he comes back, and we'll see how he is fitting into this defense, right? As an edge player or on the interior. He's got that kind of hybrid capability within the Gannon defense. You get Baron Browning for a full season. You get Josh Sweat as a legitimate edge presence now. They didn't really have that previously. Now guys like BJ Ojolari, who returns from injury, Zaven Collins, these guys can more be complement and hybrid players. And Akeem Davis-Gaither improves, the linebacker position. I think just from an experience perspective, Michael Walker's also in there, Cody Simon, who they drafted. They beefed up that linebacker position. Corner, Will Johnson, could definitely be a superstar in year one, and I wouldn't be surprised. This guy was supposed to be a top 10 prospect and a top 10 pick in this draft class, and because of injury concerns, he wasn't taken there. But if he's healthy, this guy could bring them something that they haven't had in years, really since prime Patrick Peterson. They haven't had a guy that is this good on the perimeter of their corner position. They have one of the best safety duos. They have a great nickel corner. You're expecting more out of guys like Max Melton at the corner position, right? So I look at this defense and I think they could take the biggest jump of any unit from a defensive perspective. They were like one of the worst defenses in football last year from a time of possession and a plays allowed standpoint. They were kind of savvy situationally because of coaching and because of their scheme, but I felt like they were underwhelming stopping the run. They were underwhelming on a 4-man rush. This year, they can kind of just add some fundamentals to their defense. They can stop you because they're bigger. They're more powerful. They actually have the players to penetrate now. Like, they don't have to be super crazy up front and creative all the time. They can just ball, right? And that's the difference for the Cardinals, in my opinion, is they just have better players on defense now. So that's going to make them so much better. So that's where I see the Cardinals being super improved, is that defense is going to help complement the Cardinal offense, which is going to take a lot of pressure off Kyler Murray and probably allow them to be a better team in 2025. Another team in the NFC West I think should be drastically better, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, the 49ers were like almost comically the most injured team in football last year, going from a Super Bowl berth and near Super Bowl victory to 6 wins, which is pretty crazy. But almost the exact same thing happened to the 2020 49ers. Remember, the 49ers fell off the face of the planet after they lost their first Super Bowl to the Chiefs. And the same thing kind of happened. They got injured, right? Even their quarterbacks both got hurt, and they lost a bunch of games despite having great coaching. Now, the coaching could actually be better because Robert Saleh is added back to the mix. He returns to the 49ers. I think that will bring a foundation and a floor to the 49er defense that feels like it's been missing the last couple of years. Sorensen felt like he was a bit over his head last year as a defensive coordinator. And the previous year, I just felt like Steve Wilks did not jive or mix well with the 49ers scheme or defense. And he had too many contrasting and not complementing opinions and ideas for the personnel. Okay, and Saleh he knows what to do with these guys. He's worked with Nick Bosa. He's worked with Fred Warner. He knows what to do with the core of this defense, right? And his Jets defense was very similar in a lot of ways. So I think it begins with their defense, because I think a lot of people look at the 49ers the last kind of few years and their identity and their kind of groundwork has all been based on their defensive talent complemented by an incredible offensive play caller in Kyle Shanahan, not necessarily incredible offensive quarterback or incredible running back or incredible skill. It's just that at the core of what began this whole run for the 49ers, it was great defensive talent complemented by Kyle Shanahan. And that's what uplifted this team to great success. And eventually they added the offensive talent, which made them truly a dominant team, while their defense started to dip the last couple of years because they lost D'Amico and they lost Saleh, right? So now they're kind of getting back to that coaching foundation. They're getting some youth on defense. And you look at how they might be able to turn their defense around, because Mykel Williams, a first-round pick out of Georgia, has all the talent in the world to be an impact player, especially against the run in year one to complement Nick Bosa. You have Nick Bosa, so you don't necessarily need to be a 10-sack guy as a rookie, but if you can contribute all around the defensive line, and, it will be interesting to see how they use him on third downs and things, because I could see him playing inside, kind of like an Eric Armstead in sub-package situations and being a power player there. And then, adding somebody like Yetur Gross-Matos or Sam Oku to the edge there on passing downs, because I saw good things out of them last year. But Mykel can kind of bring that versatility, and he can set the edge on early downs. And you've got guys like Alfred Collins and CJ West, who they drafted, who both are just powerful, just instant run stoppers. And Alfred Collins said it himself, no one's running on us anymore. Like, the run will be stopped, was his quote. And I think that's the foundation of what made Saleh and D'Amico better coordinators than what the Niners have had. Their run fits and their run ideas of stopping the run have been so poor that it has just allowed every team to overpower them, pick up easy yards, and just keep them out of those pass rushing situations where San Francisco used to put you in down in distances where it was just really hard because now all of a sudden Nick Bosa is screaming at your quarterback. So I feel like the 49ers are just going to be so much better from a foundational defensive perspective, even if they've lost some big names like Javon Hargrave and Leonard Floyd and Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw and Charvarius Ward. They've lost big names, but I feel like the youth, the energy, the speed, the availability, and then the coaching is going to elevate these guys. So you add Nick Martin to the depth of the linebacker position to hopefully help replace Dre Greenlaw alongside D. Winters. They also have Trey Brown to help out that depth of replacing Charvarius Ward at corner. You bring in multiple safeties in Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock. You bring in, Stout at corner in the third round, nickel corner. So they did a lot to improve the speed, the energy, the violence of this defense. I think that's going to help a lot. I would imagine that they probably will have a new kicker. I don't think Jake Moody is going to be the kicker that much longer, but I could be wrong. The offense, they should just benefit from health and consistency. McCaffrey was out for a large majority of last season. Ricky Pearsall enters year 2. Jawan Jennings is coming off his best season and is basically in his prime, and I could expect another great year this year. Demarcus Robinson gives them a little bit of a floor in case Brandon Ayuk isn't quite himself this year. Right? Demarcus Robinson's a good player, especially as a number 4, number 3 wide receiver, which is probably at best what he would be in this offense, assuming Ricky Pearsall takes that expected step, what we saw late last year. DJ Humphries is a nice swing tackle to complement Trent Williams in case he goes down. The offensive line on paper does look the same, if not a little bit worse, but I wouldn't be surprised if Trent Williams just plays a little bit more and they fix, a couple of the things with the protections. I feel like, Dominic Pooney entering year 2 could even be an elite player as opposed to just a good player. So there are reasons to like the offensive line. I think that's probably the weakness of what they haven't addressed quite yet. And this is still a team with $50 million in cap space, so they could still make some moves if they so choose. Mac Jones is actually a nice backup for Brock in case he goes down compared to what they had last year. I like the idea of Luke Farrell to kind of take pressure off George Kittle as a blocker. They have Isaac Guerrero and Jordan James and Patrick Taylor to kind of back up Christian McCaffrey, and we sort of saw what Guerrero can be in the NFL already, and even Patrick Taylor, when McCaffrey went down, but hopefully he doesn't, because he fundamentally changes this offense and this team, and he makes them so much more dynamic and better, and he almost doesn't allow a team to play man coverage because of his ability to beat man coverage as a running back and his skill set. And then I honestly feel like their receiving core is going to be much better at separating and actually getting open for Brock Purdy, because Ayuk is that guy. Then Pearsall is in theory, because of his lateral quickness and his route running, he is that guy. Jawan Jennings has always been that guy. So you look at No More Debo actually makes them more of a traditional wide receiver room where they're able to beat the weakness of what they've been facing, which is a lot of press man coverage. And teams have been blitzing them a lot because they haven't been able to beat man, especially last year when Ayuk went down and McCaffrey went down. So I feel like those weaknesses won't be there. Kyle, with a longer offseason, not being in the playoffs, will have adjustments, I'm sure. And this is just always a team in San Francisco that, due to their head coach, they just always seem to bounce back. They always seem to figure it out. And I just noticed that the Cardinals graphic was up that entire time. So I'm going to have to fix that in post. But the 49ers, man, I just feel like the 49ers are going to be so much better. They're going to go from 6 wins probably to the playoffs, especially when you consider that this is a team that has a very weak schedule, like one of the weakest schedules I've seen in recent years and the weakest schedule in the NFL this year. The Carolina Panthers are my 6th team that I think will be way better than last year. The Carolina Panthers didn't have a terrible season last year for their expectations. They definitely did do some good things near the end of the year under Canales' leadership, and I'm just expecting more from the young head coach. I'm also expecting Bryce Young to play more like late season Bryce Young for an entire season rather than early season Bryce Young. And I think that will be due to his confidence behind this offensive line, Aquanu and Moton on the edges, right? Robert Hunt entering year 2 along with Damian Lewis. on the offensive line. This is one of the most underrated offensive lines in the NFL. They've got a running game. Last year they really developed that with Hubbard. Now they add Rico Dowdle, who's very underrated from Dallas, had 1,000 yards in Dallas last year. Trevor Etienne could also give them a pass catcher, and who knows what happens with Jonathan Brooks, but he's also on this roster. Wide receiver-wise, I think they got a lot more dynamic when they drafted Tet McMillan, T-Mac, with the 8th pick in the draft. He's a smooth, outside, big-time wide receiver with long arms, big hands. He's going to make big plays in this offense. He's in that Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Canales role. That's going to be just an opening-eyed, wide receiver for defenses to have to kind of defend. And then for guys like Leggett and Thielen and David Moore and who knows, Jalen Coker, Jimmy Horn, all these guys can complement around them. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jimmy Horn complement, in terms of a screen game. He's very fast. Leggett could take a year 2 step. I wouldn't be shocked by that. Adam Thielen can still go. So I feel like this offense is a lot more complete when you compare it to the previous couple of years with Bryce Young and what he's been kind of dealing with. Now he has multiple receivers that he can rely on and be confident in. Now he has an offensive line that can make him feel big instead of small. And they have a run game to complement everything. So I feel like Carolina's offense is actually kind of sneaky decent now. The defense was a huge concern in Carolina last year. They were the worst defense, arguably, of all time from certain metrics and standpoints. I don't think they'll be that bad this year. I feel like they'll be a lot better, in fact, because their coaching really isn't the problem. I mean, Evero is a pretty solid defensive coach. He's done some good things with this team, with Denver as well. And you look at all the improvement that they've made across the roster defensively. First, they get their best player back in Derek Brown. You would hope that their other best player, who just got signed to a massive contract, J.C. Horn, that both of them can stay healthy. Both of them, can be there for the whole season, because that's a destructive run game player in Derek Brown and a big-time, powerful, just shut down single-handedly Derek Brown in that run game. And then you've got J.C. Horn, who's a great number 1 corner who can take on a lot of the best receivers in football one-on-one, which just changes the way you cover people, changes the way you're going about your defensive mathematics. Then you look at Tershawn Wharton, who will add some quickness and some penetration to the pass rush. Bobby Brown, which will help the size of the defense. And you still have guys like Shai Tuttle and A'Shawn Robinson. You have Jadeveon Clowney and you have DJ Wonham from last year, but then you have Nick Scorton, who they draft in the 2nd round, who I could easily see leading this team in sacks as a rookie. Patrick Jones, I like his hybrid nature within the defense to kind of be a little bit of what they had in Frankie Louvu type. Like, I could see him playing a little bit of that role. Christian Roseboom adds some depth behind Wallace and Jewell at linebacker. Princely also can get after it, their 3rd round pick off the edge, okay? So they've improved their pass rush. They've improved the size of the defense, the depth of the front 7, the run defense for sure, especially if Derek Brown's back to form and Bobby Brown, A'Shawn Robinson. That's going to be a hard team to run right in the middle of the line on it. I mean, last year I felt like they could just get ran on right up the middle. This year I don't feel that's going to be the case. They bring back Mike Jackson, who was actually very underrated for them last year. And, nickel corner is a bit of a concern, but Trayvon Morig should help out that safety position, as well as Ransom, who they drafted out of Ohio State. So maybe not the improvements to the secondary that you would have liked, but I feel like they still got a little bit better at the safety position at least. And then special teams kind of had a makeover as well. But I look at Carolina and I say this makes a logical step and sense. Like, Carolina should go from being kind of a nice story at the end of the season to acquiring a bunch of players to fix some of their biggest defensive holes, to going to a team that's kind of competing for a division crown. Like, I think Carolina could be flirting with the Bucs and the Falcons in winning this division, and I wouldn't be that surprised. I wouldn't pick it necessarily, but I wouldn't rule the Panthers out to keep pounding into 2025 as a pretty competitive team for the first time in a minute. So that's the Carolina Panthers. And then to finish this all off, I feel like the Las Vegas Raiders are going to improve this year and going to be a team that I think is way better in 2025. Geno Smith, first of all, when you compare Geno Smith to Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell, it's light years difference. So you're going to have a quarterback that can just rip the ball. He's one of the most accurate passers in all of football, according to analytics or just eye test. The guy puts the ball on the money consistently, especially at the intermediate and deep levels of the field. He commands the pocket. I love his pocket presence. I love how he executes in 2-minute and late game situations. And he's going to steal them some games because Geno can definitely do that. He also brings great confidence, great leadership. He's a great guy. He's a great quarterback for this new regime. Ashton Jeanty provides a superstar playmaker to this offense to complement Brock Bowers. So they have two superstars in the making at tight end and running back, which kind of is very unique. Not a lot of teams have this good of a running back tight end combination. The only one that really comes to mind is San Francisco, in my opinion. Raheem Mostert also adds a veteran presence to the running back position and a bit of speed for Chip Kelly. They still have White and McCormick as well, who played last year. Their offensive line is pretty underrated already. Jackson Powers-Johnson plays his natural position at center now. Alex Capo was added for some depth. They also drafted 2 third-rounders in Grant and Rogers to add some competition and some future prospect behind guys like Colton Miller. I think DJ Glaze is going to hold down right tackle, and it's entering year 2, so he could actually improve, right? They've got a pretty interesting tight end room as well. You know, Bowers, Mayer, that's a 1-2 combo, and then Ian Thomas was also added. Jack Besh is also kind of like a wide receiver tight end, so it's going to be interesting to see how they use all these pieces. Trey Tucker enters year 3. He was actually kind of good in year 2 as a speed guy, a deep threat type of guy. He'll play a lot because he's the only guy in that archetype, really. Jacoby Myers is a very underrated player. He had 1,000 yards last year for the first time in his career. He's a chain mover. He's a route runner. I think Geno will love him. So I think the offense, just from a creation and creativity standpoint, from a running game standpoint, from a quarterback standpoint, yes, they lost Devontae Adams, but I mean, they pretty much got better in every other area when it comes to they'll be able to run the ball better because of scheme and the player that they're running the ball with. They're going to be better at passing the ball because Geno is way better than their quarterback, and because I think they've got a very unique pass catching room. And then defensively speaking, yes, I'm concerned about the secondary, and I do think they got worse at cornerback, but there are reasons to like this defense moving forward because Christian Wilkins is back. Malcolm Kuntz is back. Those two players basically didn't play for the Raiders last year, and they were actually going to be huge pieces of why the defense was going to be underrated last season, right? All they really had last year was Max Crosby. Now they have, Malcolm Kuntz. Now they have Christian Wilkins. Now they have Tyree Wilson healthy entering year 3. They still have guys like Adam Butler. So, yeah, I think the D-line just inherently could make the entire defense a lot better than last year, and they already have a good defensive coordinator. I'm intrigued to see what they do with these linebackers like Landon Roberts and Devin White and Tommy Eichenberg and how that all works out, okay? But Landon Roberts very much knows this defense from his New England days. Devin White is intriguing because I think he could be a very good blitzer within this defense, but I do find his flaws in the running game and the passing game and coverage. But there is a way to unlock him, and I wouldn't be surprised by Tommy Eichenberg's kind of breakout either. I liked him coming out of college. Jeremy Chin is also a really intriguing piece. As well, Darian Porter has super upside at corner. Eric Stokes has untapped potential, same as Bennett as well. So I could see this team, not being a true playoff threat in this division because the Broncos, Chargers, and Chiefs are all ahead of them, and they're all playoff teams from last year. But the Raiders could definitely be a lot better than last year and could actually steal a game from each of their division foes. They only won 4 games last year. They had terrible head coach in Pierce. Now you got Pete Carroll. They had suspect offensive play calling, and that became Chip Kelly, right? You didn't have guys like Christian Wilkins and Malcolm Kuntz. Now you do. You didn't have an Ashton Jeanty. Now you do. Their quarterback is so much better. So the Raiders could be a really surprising team. Right? They could actually be right there with the Broncos and the Chargers, and I wouldn't be that shocked because honestly, their roster isn't that far off. I just feel like they have less certainty because we haven't really seen it yet. So those are, guys, the teams that I think will be way better in 2025. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, spike the like button, show your love, and don't forget to subscribe. Don't be a jabroni. I will be coming out with the teams that I think will be way worse in 2025. Peace.